Hello everyone. Very quickly I would like to speak about how in individual consciousness, in regards to how the personality here arranges itself in a certain manner, but then immediately sees the mannerisms can be upgraded. So once you accept something and see that it can be changed, you are more the change that is changing than that which is you're changing from. So the past and the future become projections of the now, really based on how you're holding a lens. That means when we see that life can reflect, we can also, light can reflect, we see that also it's as if we can see reality through infinite distinctions, but it is all one light. And so it's very crucial to know this, because many people, that sense of redemption, that is in human psychology, that's in a growing species, which makes me kind of feel that the beings that originated thought in this plane were way aware beyond thought. So what that really means is that a person first has individualized themselves out of the cosmos. It's as if the cosmos has individualized to Bob, and suddenly Bob is looking at the cosmos and he's like, whoa, am I just Bob? And so in that mindset you see that Bob is a separate consideration in bigger consideration, which is the world, but at the same time, when the consciousness shifts from just an individual projection, it's as if you suddenly realize you're more than the personality. So all those selfish decisions feel as if they weren't right. But you must see that the nature of being is as it is. We have too many opinions until we see that there is really no opinion to have in a changing world, because all is happening. That means even the opinions, all those people telling you about what to do, they're still being at once. All moments of existence exist fundamentally. So this is the beautiful thing in the phenomena in reality, how we consider ourselves to be a certain sense of self, and then we also consider a certain sense of other. But once life really in its natural change shows us that our consciousness is beyond that relationship, we grow through an observance of that which we are and that which is being. So meditation is really the exploration into the subtlety of how your existence is present beyond personality, and beyond personality means that language can't touch it. Dualistic vocabulary cannot touch it, because it is a unified experience. Even the word unity is still dualistic because language has its limits. It's as if language is a tool for the species to see that the body is too a tool for the mind. But what the mind is it cannot be anything else other than all that is. So you are seeing that if you were to self-inquire into the origin of your awareness, it would be an exploration of all that is. So you would look into the nature of reality and you would calibrate, you would adjust. It's like being in a room and suddenly being like, all right, let me see what room I'm in. And suddenly when you look around, you're like, oh my God, there's a door right there. There's a window right there. And sometimes before finding the door, many people find windows. But the windows are there to inspire you, because the clarity is there before it could not be clear. So what is this illusion? What is this incapability? Why do we need to motivate life's motivation, which is through man? Only because the ideology thinks it's something it's not. When you think you're something you're not, you see your alignment and the quality of your experience shifts. But the beings who accept and trust life, these beings will see life will begin trusting them because they've allowed it to. That person who feels the world is too cruel and that's a justification for cruel behavior is not realizing that's just one viewpoint. There are many viewpoints, but we must see what is needed now. And so there's that point where the immediate sage becomes aware that, oh, I'm seeing things others not, but that at the same time suddenly realizes that there is no sight in that same way. So the hierarchical feeling that we know more than anything else is an illusion when the state of consciousness shifts to one where it is so collective, there's no separation. It's as if your whole body is together first before it's separate. And so we see when we try to engineer like a body, when we try to put it, we can't create it as beautifully and as intelligent as life does it naturally. So nature knows what man doesn't, but mankind in his kindness to be will join the existential intelligence of his plane of existence. So man is still talking to man. That means many people are talking to one another. We have a lot of Facebook likes. So when this is happening, that means people's attention is on an external objective form of communication. But when the communication goes internal, this is where the self-inquiry is making the personality to see where it is and how it is a person. And it will take you to a realm where you will feel and you will begin observing new things about yourself. These new things are in actuality not based on time and space. You can have an experience timeless and spaceless, but totally intelligent and observant. And many will say, is this your abstraction being accepted too soon? No, it's actually our attention being adjusted. Because if the placebo effect was a teacher, it would say, yo, the way you're looking at it is suggesting how it is. So how we see things is more than just how our eyes see things. It is how we are aware to our whole moment of being, which a body is an aspect of. In the greatness of truth, man is the revelation of his next step. We choose freedom, but only because it's a reaction to domination. If we were aware of our true nature of being, the truth does not need to comparatively be known. It is prior to comparison. It is prior to all those before language could speak, life has. And this was a very interesting cognition for me, because the minute I had this understanding, immediately I shifted. It's as if my attention shifted in a way where I just saw that books were as limited as the person reading it. And even though there could be a lot of knowledge, it's about how you are taking an existential and experiential responsibility in being a moment of being. There's a very interesting Sufi poem, and it's a dervish poem. It's, I think, around 800, 700 years ago, perhaps. And it's by Hafiz. And this poem says, the poem is called Needing a Mirror. So I guess he's writing this for anyone who needs a mirror. A mirror of life. Anyways, to continue. Hafiz beautifully says, your eye is so wise. It keeps turning, needing to touch beauty. It keeps turning, needing to find a mirror that will caress you as I. And perhaps if for a second we see that this poet had reached a state of his life's experience where he knew about the ocean as a drop, you would see if the ocean was to write these words for a drop, it would be saying, your vision is so wise. It keeps turning, needing to touch beauty. It keeps turning, needing to find a mirror. As if your perception is constantly trying to see the next now and the novelty in it. And you're looking, and beauty is really the peak of the experience. And so you see, you want to touch beauty, there's this constant vision towards an innate, known intuitive clarity towards one's liberated and collective being, absolute experience. Once you see that the mirror is here, the search needs to stop, so the removal of the reflection is not the true story. That means that when you stop moving in the mirror, you stop associating with thinking that you're the reflection that's moving, you just be still and you see. And some people can't see in their movements, but enlightenment is really how the eyes let a mirror stand to see how they have sat down. And Hafiz says it keeps turning, needing to find a mirror that will caress you as I. That means life has an absolute moment of being, which we are within, creating a segmentation based on a personal acceptance of what a person is. But we are not aware that that's an individual consciousness. So as long as you're saying you're an individual, it's very hard to see the collective. So it's in regards to the exploration of one's nature of being, your attention to your attention will be that moment where consciousness will see itself beyond the mirror, as if beyond the reflection in the mirror. Hafiz also has a very beautiful quote, and he says, "The words you speak become the house you live in." And as someone who speaks to nature, in nature, that means I record most of these talks in parks. But it becomes very evident that what is happening in life is an access to the source of all happening. That means the minute you are an individual consciousness, the minute you say I am this, that is standing right there. The minute you say I am afraid, you see the world has just become a bit more harder. But the minute you say I am not afraid, because what the hell is even fear, What are these words that just have entered man's ears and are justifying his behavior? We must ask ourselves, 7,000 years, 10,000 years in the future, let's say, in the next profound now, we see that none of this mattered. We will see that none of this mattered. Because if the consciousness of now can remember information beyond normality, normality is not the norm. That means the advancement of our technologies will begin to accompany our extension of clear vision. So nature's clarity, nature knows. We need to forget, before the human species learned how to read, nature was bringing man to where he needs to. In a sense, what? That means we may ask ourselves, did the ape have teachers to stand up? And we see that the teaching was what life did and was. There are many moments in this life. Your every day is like your room of consciousness into a world with an infinite possibility, because you're in the finite. For truth can lie to others, but it cannot lie to itself. And life gives you moments where you become aware of the self. One way life gives you moments that you become aware of the self is by someone on the internet talking about the self. Another way is how you approach the self. And so if you go and I was in nature and I was alone and I just did this, and it was very profound. I just went and sat between a rock in the middle of a stream. And for a second I was like, let's assume there were no books in reality. How would I explore and figure out the world? And so I just stood there, and my observance took me to what I felt I had. So whenever we sit down and be still, immediately we become aware of what we're entitled to. And the movements that we were in, but we become aware of it as if we are the stillness of the riverbed rather than the rush of an unconscious push. Because the Buddha at the gas pump. Was suggested how all Buddhas are driven, even though they do not personify it to know about it. That means it is very actually okay, mankind, to realize for the personality to be in a playful and not childlike, but as vibrant with the self-awareness and attention and enthusiasm of a child. That, you know, it's as if like your youth is giving you an ability through what memory is to allow that imagery to also be present now. Just like how you see you can move your body, you can see that in the depths of what you're considering to be your abstraction, you can move it. But after you move it, you see you become a bit tired, and just like how you can move your hands up and down, but suddenly you'll be like, gosh, I'm getting tired, you know? Or whether you're in the gym, you know, and you're doing pull-ups and you're like, all right, for how long are we going to be able to pull myself up? And suddenly you see, you just get off. And that means you suddenly become present with your naked self, and it is something that no one else can. If people can, if people can speak about an aspect of you and you feel that that is you, then there is an inefficiency there, because every being's reality is based on their own experiences, and the combination of those experiences is a very great tool, because design is how our future is going to be designed. That means we must study the nature of existential design, the nature of cosmic design. One approach is through science, other approach is through that which science is not capturing. So if science is looking at one part of the world and trying to explore that aspect, we need certain beings to develop with another. And that means we must see that what is profound is existential allowance, existential playfulness, and an ability for the world to grow at a very advanced and efficient state, and that only happens when you trust life. So if 8 billion people really trusted what they are and lived in a way where they were looking around and they were wondering, how does humanity grow brighter? They would then see that selflessness is like, if you want to serve humanity, it's done selflessly. If you want to serve yourself, then you got to keep selling fish, so you'll still be selfish. For how long, my dear beings, do you want to sell fish? And not that, you know, of course fishermen are great, you know, they really know how to navigate nets, but we must see that freedom was free before it could doubt itself. Once you reveal your greatness, once you tap into it, you know, just like that person who suddenly dug the ground, is like, oh, I can't take this anymore, and suddenly found water in the ground, you know. Similarly, you would go treasure revealing towards your inner being, and you would first see, you'd be confronted with a lot of ideas. But then you'd see how all ideas are present in space and time, so your interest would move away from stories to just the nature of how space and time are present within an experience of now. Once you're in the experience of now, you see there comes a transparency where you don't really have any opinion, but the intelligence of the moment is still doing its thing. You become observant of this, but it's at first, it is external until you cultivate an internal awareness. The reason they said practice, because when we say treasure revealing, it is not external treasure, it is internal treasure. So the externality has to be coordinated, just like how a Rubik's Cube has to be moved in a certain way for the being's self-awareness to become present. Now yoga has really beautifully explored into this. Really beautifully. That means, I feel I'm saying this name completely wrong, but yeah. Or that being who wrote the Vishnu Puranas, for example, and the Gita. There's this very profound story. There's this very beautiful story, and there's this this mighty being writes 18 books on human conduct and human behavior and just pretty much life's disciplinary views. And after writing 18 books from a state of consciousness that is brilliant, unbelievable, you know, he communicates it and he creates a bridge. Now, after he does this, he is still not satisfied with the architecture of the moment. And in ancient traditions, and what they say about this being is that this being suddenly, an angel comes to him and says, you will only be satisfied when you write about your love of God, love towards God, towards reunion. And so this being, after writing 18 books at that time where people were like, what the hell is a book? I just need to find some food to eat, you know? It's very profound because he writes that book and he finishes it. He writes that one last book, and it's his redemption, and he finishes his work in this plane of existence. His great work continues beyond this plane of existence. And so we can see, if beings were like that then, how are they so different now? That means consciousness is based on an engagement with that which it is considering unconscious. For how else is the world explored? There must be an intention for exploration. This intention for exploration is healthy in any branch of knowledge because it is originating from the roots of direct experience. And so, once we see the roots are, where are the roots of direct experience? Some parts of the roots have stemmed out, have stepped out. So we see that aspect of the roots of direct experience, our direct experience of the now, is unknown. It's outside of the earth, and one of it is inside the earth. Do you see? So mankind must begin developing consciousness and an acknowledgement to receive visions. Because before contact, there's as if streams of visionary creativity coming, as if the species is going to get so creative that it's going to be like, all right, we can definitely see other things, you know. And so then the reality can adjust to an external advancement. But we must be very playful, because externality must be known through an internal awareness. That means you must see that it is your reality you are seeing. Right now I am speaking, I am using these words, but how you know these words are based on you. And all those people watching news and discriminating, you see suddenly what they're doing is they're discriminating against themselves. Because how you see something, for example, if I bring an apple, Eve is going to see a different apple, Newton is going to see a different apple. You know, they're going to be inspired differently. But you're going to see that the apple is empty. So once we see the images that we're judging and all our enemies are actually our ignorance of choosing to create them before we actually know who they are, then we are thrown in a disparity. And this doesn't mean all relationships are just at first divinely adjusted. It means that your personality must work towards transcending itself. And as it does, it is nature that is living. Your life is beyond a life that can be defined. And so that is the mastery of life. That is how profound cosmic intelligence is. That means if you're that kid who were in your cottage setting up the table for the family dinner, you know, and you saw that you put the tablecloth, and you see that one point of the tablecloth could be pulled and the whole thing could be adjusted. You see that in the table of man's ideology, every human being that is being born, even me speaking now, I am pulling the ideology into conscious view. So every one of us can get inspired and is an inspiration to the self. Your whole moment is so inspiring that before you feel guilty, there's inspiration to not be guilty. So it's very profound. So we must not miscalculate by calculating too soon. For self-reflective imagery has a handling which requires a natural acceptance. So if you are a drop, you think you need more objective technologies to convince you of your subjectivity. If you're a river, you're comfortable with subjectivity, so you become an observer of objectivity. You know, and suddenly you see that in the nature of gas, once you reach there, you're not in this plane of existence in the same way that as something can be in something. You are permeating as absolute consciousness of the whole being, but it is one where it is not segmented. So the pilots of consciousness are at first steering man's mind to man's mind through a body of hardship. He is moving to the softness and the simplicity of the nature of being. That means no person is stupid, because when you look at where the personality is originating, it is natural, you know? And it's like calling someone stupid is like calling a tree stupid. You're calling a part of this existence irrelevant, but you are the one who's creating that irrelevancy. And so we need to adjust our behavior, and we need to ask ourselves, what would the greatness of 10,000 years, 7,000 years in the future demand of now? That means we would see that if we were thinking 10,000 years ahead right now in how we were walking in this world, how we were selflessly compassionate as consciousness to all being, we would see it would be one where they would be like, wow, our ancestors really took us 10,000 years ahead. You know? And guess what? Right now, who we are, all the people who are in society and humanity right now, there have been many beings who have served humanity. And when I say many beings, it's beings going to that ant or to that butterfly landing on the forehead of some child of life, or a galaxy whispering into a way where it's as if the human species is being inspired by the limitless imagery to move beyond the limited imagery. But it is also beyond imagery, so the confrontation is a liberation that is unspeakable. So really, consciousness doesn't have much to say. Or if consciousness does, awareness doesn't. Absolute experiential awareness is here and now, and so be profound. Much blessings and namaste.